Talk more about this, make sense of it. I'm joined by Major Glenn Ignacio, a retired U.S. Air Force Special Operations Commander. Thanks so much for coming on. Day 3 of the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. Are you surprised that it appears to be holding for now?
I'm not surprised. I think it's in the best interest of both because Hezbollah has been decimated. It is sort of comical that they said that they claimed victory, but it is important as well that Israel Netanyahu said, "Do not get into those areas to the civilians before they're able to pull out." So, all the Israeli forces need to go south to the border again. Hezbollah has to stay north, about 20 miles north, and then I think it's the safest time for Israeli citizens and the Lebanese citizens to get back into their homes. But the longer this goes, the better off it is. So let's hope this is a finality to it.
Well, Israel committed to withdrawing ground troops from Lebanon within 60 days. Is that something that can be done?
Yeah, I mean they move pretty quickly. I think that they are able to pull that back accordingly. A lot of the armament were tanks and so forth, and most of the troops on the ground. So them to be able to pull back is definitely feasible. And it just is making sure that there is no threat or any kind of hidden agenda with Hezbollah to attack as they pull back to the border. That's the thing to watch out for.
It's definitely a great sign. Definitely a great sign. The question, of course, is how does it affect Gaza? Is there hope now for a similar ceasefire deal in Gaza, or is that a completely separate situation? Then again, with Hezbollah now entering into the kind of the ceasefire with Israel, they're losing an ally.
Yeah, in all honesty, you're right. It is two different situations. In fact, a lot of the Lebanese people were like, hey, Hezbollah, you're attacking because of the situation of Hamas. Why are our livelihoods tied to Hamas in Gaza? And that was one of the things that a lot of the citizens of Lebanon really felt. And of course, that was pressure from Iran. But as far as the conflict with Hamas, it's still going on. They're still attacking each other. We don't see really anything drawn down there. And really, if you think about it, that's really the lost stronghold for Iran to leverage any kind of attacks against Israel now, because there's the ceasefire with Hezbollah. So really the biggest thing always comes around to the hostages. The hostages being released really puts a possible end game in here. But as you see, Gaza is decimated. And unfortunately, it's Hamas' existence. And honestly, it would be great to see the people turn against Hamas, but I don't think that's going to happen. So it's going to be a drawn out affair until there's some progress. And right now, there's nobody at the table to negotiate this.
Yep, and it's also a question what negotiating power they have. I actually want to turn on to something else. Some breaking news we have. So this afternoon, in an interview with Sky News, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, he suggested that he is willing to cede territory temporarily to Russia in exchange for NATO protection and as part of a ceasefire deal. So a huge departure from his prior stance. That's a big deal. Talk to us about what you make of this. How would that be negotiated? What would that look like?
Actually, it's an interesting tipping point because for the first time he says he's ready to give up land. Okay, let's just keep that by itself. That is something that's significant because right now Russia still has a fifth of the country. So taking and being able to get access to NATO, I don't see that happen. It's actually dangerous for NATO. But what I believe, and this is with General Kellogg just being added to the list there with Trump, is that the idea is, hey, look you need to come to the peace table. So does Putin, and the ability to do this is Zelensky. If you don't come to the peace table, we're not giving you any support. That's a stronghold. Same thing with Putin. You don't come to the table, we're going to invest heavily into Ukraine to strike you. I think the ceasefire is plausible. I think the ability to get them to the bargaining table is plausible. But that area that Russia holds, they're either going to keep or they're going to split the difference and then say, hey, we'll protect you, Ukraine, but you're not joining NATO. So a lot of complexities there, and I knew I threw a lot at you, but that's sort of what's going on right now. A lot of pressure in Ukraine, especially with these attacks in the last 24 hours.
And I'm glad you broke it down because, again, it seems that if they were to join NATO, they may be able to get that land back at a later date, only temporarily giving it over to Russia. But here's the thing, when you think about Ukraine, apparently they don't have enough conscripts. That desertion's an issue. President Biden apparently urged Zelensky to lower the draft age now to 18. And Russia, by the way, is targeting the country's power grid. Can Ukraine really get through the winter months with this assault?
It's pretty bad. I mean, I've been there, and my teammates are actually over there now. We did a humanitarian effort, and I'll tell you, is right now it's decimating. Where they've hit the attack, they hit the infrastructure of the electricity grid, where there's blackouts through the entire country, where before it used to be only certain areas. So that's devastating itself. But the country is war weary. There's thousands that have been dead, and so this is what happened: is that originally the conscription in the draft was 29 and older. Now it's 27 to 29 or 25 to 27, excuse me, and they have to register. But but they're not conscripted, they're not drafted. And that's the problem. So there's thousands of desertions. You're not going to hear that, but this is what's going on the ground. People aren't believing the propaganda that they're defeating all the drones, because they're not. We see the infrastructure destroyed. And honestly, with the North Koreans helping Russia, that's the key. No matter how many weapons we give them, who occupies the ground? And right now, Ukraine doesn't have any reserves. So they have to draft their people, and they haven't. We've talked about this for over a year. It's a problem.
Well, look, it's a 2-year conflict now, and President Donald Trump, or incoming President Donald Trump, says that he will end this right as he begins office. So we shall see what happens. Major Glenn Ignacio, thanks so much for coming on. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Jesse. Happy Thanksgiving.